my stuff popping up. Can you see it?
Yes, yes, it's perfect.
Okay, I'm cheating a little. I did this talk as good afternoon, everyone. I feel like I'm talking every week, so it's just the same old group that I'm chatting to. um, I did this talk at UCT. We had a discussion about AI in education. So I thought rather than stressing about doing something new, I'll um, talk about it again because it has everything to do with AI. Um, are you guys seeing this little screen share thing? Where is this?
We can just see the presentation.
Okay, great. All right. Um, it was a discussion we had about AI between two academics, and we kind of agreed on most things. So it wasn't really a debate of any sort, but we did introduce a couple of ideas that are worth thinking about in terms of AI in education. And it's very clear that, you know, certain things are at the forefront of the discussion. And these are the sort of things that I highlighted. Um, okay, so I'm going to talk for about 15 minutes and then we'll have some time to discuss. I'm going to basically put down 5 statements about AI in education. And the first one's the most important, that generative AI is going to make us lazy if we don't use it correctly. And it's very clear that this is the case. We have that now very popular MIT study that was put on archive on the 25th of June this year that showed that basically did MRI scans on people on 3 groups of people um, using and not using AI to write essays over a period of 4 months. So one group was allowed to use generative AI to help them in their essay writing. One group was only allowed to use Google, and the other group was brain only. And they scanned the brains while doing these essays over the course of 4 months, and then they switched them up at the end and said, okay, the AI users now must do a brain only essay, and um, the brain only users were allowed to use AI. And um, I usually said, it's very clear from the study that the AI is making us dumber, but actually it's just, we are just getting lazy. Um, it showed that the brain scans showed that the AI users were not activating most parts of their brain, the most of the parts of the brain than the non AI users were activating. So it is severely limiting the cognitive conflict that is required for learning when we abuse AI in this way. And it's very easy to abuse AI like this for many different reasons that I'll get to. Um, One of the things that's very important, on the same lines as cognitive conflict, is the idea of the recall hypothesis, that an assessment, when you recall information, if you are in a discussion, if you're in an interview, if you're in a test, if you're in an exam, when you recall information, or even when you are note taking, when you recall information, you are actually creating or solidifying memories. And AI is bypassing that recall. It's bypassing cognitive conflict, it's bypassing recall. So what is proper use? Um, I basically say, or I define proper use as being um, using AI in the generation of an idea, but never allowing that AI generated product to be the thing that obtains marks. So that's really important to remember. You need to somehow interact with the AI when you are learning. Um, it is being used, so we have to, we can't just police it out of the way. We have to use the AI to increase our cognitive conflict. It is an incredible tool. We have the world at our fingertips. We should use it as something that enhances learning, something that makes our process more difficult. And this is a really difficult thing to do because AI is supposed to make everything easier, and we are tempted to go that easy route. So anything, the proper use of AI is any sort of use that is not, that does not, that the AI generated content is not the thing that gets marked. It's not the end of the line. It's not the end of the education process. So asking a student for an essay, asking a student to do an online quiz, that'll never work, right? AI can do it for them and they will do it, right? The second statement is that AI is a problem in education because of this broken proxy of grades. So let me just define what a broken proxy is. A broken proxy is essentially a, a measure. So the proxy is a measure that says whether or not we're reaching our goal. So we would have the goal of education, and then our proxy would be a mark, a grade, right? But as soon as the Goodhart, Charles Goodhart, the economist, mentioned that as soon as the proxy becomes the target, it fails to be a good proxy. As soon as the proxy becomes the measure, it fails to be a good measure. Or rather, sorry, it's the other way around. As soon as a measure becomes the target, it fails to be a good measure. And we see this in the case of gross domestic product. This is the easiest to illustrate, is the case of gross domestic product, where the outcome of a country, the national output of a country, is seen as, my video has gone off. I'm not sure why. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine. I see it's gonna, maybe it's optimizing,
Okay, I have no idea why. You can
but
see
we
the
can hear you.
presentation?
We can still see the presentation, yeah.
Okay, so the broken proxy of gross domestic product. So when you measure well-being, right, at the moment, people measure it in your country's well-being in terms of the amount of national income, right, or gross domestic product. And this is problematic because GDP was created in the at the time of the Great Depression, when national income or national production tended to signal job creation, innovation. It signaled recovery from the Great Depression. However, it no longer signals recovery from the Great Depression because there is no Great Depression, right? However, it was used for so long as a proxy measure for the target of economic recovery that we forgot that it was only for economic recovery and not for economic well-being. Gross domestic product is thus a very broken proxy, and you can see that in the way that things like crime spending, if you increase your crime, you increase spending on security, you increase your gross domestic product. If you increase sickness, if you decrease your health and you increase sickness, you increase medical spending, you increase your gross domestic product. If you work harder and you burn out, you increase gross domestic product. If you pollute more and you have environmental cleanup costs, you have increased gross domestic product. So of course, people chasing GDP are chasing the wrong thing. They're not chasing the original target, economic recovery or economic growth. So GDP is a broken proxy. Grades is also a broken proxy for us, right? We are chasing grades, but we no longer understand what our grades mean. So anything that will get a student a grade, they will take the easiest path to get that grade. It doesn't mean that that grade shows that they are educated. The grade is just a target that they are trying to get to. And of course, they're going to do this because they want to take the path of least resistance. The easiest way to get the marks, they will follow that path, right? Back when I was a student, the easiest path for me, because I have photographic memory, was to memorize everything. So I memorized everything. Did I learn anything? Maybe not, but I got the grades, right? And students do the path of least resistance in many different ways. Before AI, they would also memorize, or more likely, they would practice the assessments of the test that they're about to write, practice previous assessments, right? So that they understand the assessor, so that they understand what the assessor wants, so that they understand what type of questions will be asked in that test. There's nothing about knowing that subject. It's not about becoming an expert in that subject. It's about becoming an expert in the test, right? So if basically AI has just given them another tool to get around to that grade without the difficulty of the cognitive conflict. And it's not like we can't blame our students for doing this. I mean, education at the moment is a very stressful thing, because if you don't get the grades, you waste all that money, right? The first generation students are trying to pull their families out of poverty. The 10th generation students, well, they don't want to be the first in their line that doesn't get the degree. So everybody's under a huge amount of pressure. And AI just gives them a tool to release that pressure a little bit. Okay. Third statement is that everybody's using AI and it should not be policed. Um, we are using it to learn. We are using it to be productive. We are using it to be efficient. And studies show every student is using it to cheat. Whether you think your students are or not, I mean, it doesn't matter. They are. If you think they aren't, you are the one being fooled. They are using it, and if you give them the opportunity to cheat using AI, they will do it because it's the path of least resistance. James Walsh did an article for New York Magazine's Intelligencer, and he basically surveyed a whole bunch of college students and professors at colleges, and they all admitted to cheating. The fact is, if you do not cheat and your colleagues do, or your peers do in education, then you are basically disadvantaging yourself, because they are not going to get caught and they are going to get higher marks than you. So you are disadvantaging yourself if you do not cheat. So we have to consider, how can we bring AI in without it being a cheat? Well, if you don't have the AI product as the thing that's getting the mark. Okay. Students will always be one step ahead of us. So there's no ways we are going to be able to, you know, make the test anti-AI in the long term. Okay. They will always have more time than us, and they will always have more incentive to beat us at the AI game. We have to learn how to be transparent. And even in my modules where I allow AI use as part of the learning process, students do not want to reference it. This is problematic. They have been cheating for so long using AI that even when I say they're allowed to use it, they still prefer not to put their use as a reference. Okay, they prefer not to be transparent about it. It's this guilt that they've got that AI is cheating, right? So we have to teach them how to understand that AI is not cheating at all. Okay, and then from the last coffee talk, from the previous one, from Keegan's coffee talk, I had another statement that we need to be extremely structured about our prompts. I'm not going to repeat what he said, but essentially the what it boiled down to from our discussions, what it boiled down to was that we need to make sure that we consciously get both sides of the argument from AI all the time. AI is a yes man, and if you ask it to do something, if you say like, okay, why is Donald Trump the best president ever? It's going to give you reasons why Donald Trump is the best president ever. Okay. If you say, why is Donald Trump the worst president ever? It's going to give you reasons. It's a yes man. It's going to tell you what you want to hear. Right. So we need to make sure that when we use AI, we don't use it like we used Google, perhaps, that we ask it something and we ask it the counter arguments and we learn from it. Okay. It's part of generating cognitive conflict. And then finally, we all know this, but AI is more artificial than it is intelligent. There's a really nice video that you guys can get from 3 Blue 1 Brown, a YouTube channel that you can give to your students if they see AI as this magical, all knowledgeable thing. The video explains how the architecture works, and it's a really nice explanation. And it shows that AI is just like a statistical process. It's incredibly strong, however. So they've used AI to do pretty impressive things in research where brute force processes need to be done at blazingly fast speeds. So you can go and Google protein folding. Protein folding is one of the areas that AI has been used that's advanced in leaps and bounds. Um, that's a really nice example. This AI might be in a bubble. The big companies are making money, but all the other companies that wanted to create their own little AIs, sub AIs, they're not getting the investment return that they thought they would. And a lot of financial gurus are pulling their money out of AI from these fringe investments. Yes, the big companies will always make money, but yeah, it's not something that's really sustainable in the long run. Also because of the massive data center use. So data centers use a significant portion of global energy demand. And by the end of 2040, I think 10 to 15% of greenhouse gases are going to be created by data centers, not to mention water usage and all that sort of thing. But data centers, a fraction of that is used for AI. Um, and in essence, it still means that about 0.5% of our global energy demand at the moment is used for training AI models. And then lastly, we are actually generating jobs. AI is, for example, not a good coder. It's not an efficient coder. And we're actually getting the case where things like vibe code cleanup is becoming a job that you can do, where you clean up these massive coding projects that were done by AI in order to make them actually bug free. So, we've got, while AI is taking away some menial jobs, for example, um, Shopify, if you want to hire new hires, the managers have to prove that the job that they are filling cannot be done by AI. So while in some areas people are losing jobs to AI, we are also creating jobs to clean up AI messes. So yeah, interesting things to talk about. Those were my five statements. So I blitzed through them. So we've got a few minutes to talk. I don't want to